I just want to stress the message in regard to vaccinations. Clearly, we continue to see in the public arena messages coming out from some people who would describe themselves as anti-vaxxers, and others who have, for various reasons, opposition to vaccination. Can I just stress that anti-vaxxers obviously live in another universe, and others who give messages that this virus isn't dangerous and don't get vaccinated clearly have no medical or scientific training. This virus is an extremely transmissible virus. It can kill you, and it can kill your family and your friends. We've just heard from Dr. Chant that the number of people now going into our hospitals in New South Wales are increasing. The number of people going into our intensive care units are increasing, and the number of people being ventilated are increasing. And sadly, so are the deaths. So my message is very strongly that to the community more broadly, there is only one solution here, and that is to get vaccinated. Dismiss the ideas that aren't based in science or medicine or are propagated by anti-vaxxers who live in another universe. Book yourself in for a vaccination. We have quite a large number of vaccination sites now available through the state health system, but we also have GPs who are providing vaccines. We've talked many times about the fact that obviously there are some limits on the amount of vaccine coming through from the federal government at the moment, but they are trying hard to get more vaccine. What we do know is that they have now brought online more GPs to be able to distribute the vaccine. That means that you have the capacity to hopefully ring a GP in your area, preferably your own GP. If your GP is not vaccinating for whatever reason, ask your GP for a referral and advice to go to another GP in the local area and get your vaccine. There is no question that we will not get out of this pandemic without a very substantial proportion of our population being vaccinated. So please go and get vaccinated. Don't listen to some of these crazy messages that are coming out implying that this is not a dangerous virus. It's extremely dangerous.
Welcome, folks. This is All Minus One, and my name is Bill. Excuse me. Good way to open. Good way to open. Stutter on the opening, right? Very professional here. In any case, guys, you just heard the health minister of Australia talk about getting vaccinated. He is an expert. Now, I'm going to talk about this, of course, today, as well as the lockdowns that have been going on and off in Australia and the numbers there and how ridiculous that all of this is. Then we're going to talk about the UK's Pingdemic, which is a track and trace program that they're using to follow people. And because they're contact tracing folks, many people are being locked down and locked away from their businesses when they should probably just go about doing things as normal. But they have to isolate because they were potentially exposed. So it's creating a bigger problem. And then lastly, but not least, we have the Crimson Contagion, which was a exercise that was conducted before Event 201 that Donald Trump then signed executive orders on vaccinations and whatever else. It was an American exercise, an experiment within the White House. I'll show you some news articles on that. So we'll get into it here in a moment. Thank you all for joining. I see Thane's here. Sam, of course, already said hi to. Dalhuck, thank you. Val, hey, gooding, Val. Good to see you guys. I do have Entropy up. Now, today, I tried to run this through DLive, and for some reason, it would not run initially. That's why I didn't play that video right away. If you guys were jumping in, it was just a blank screen or my logo on the screen. But for some reason, it wasn't running, so I'm running it through YouTube. If this gets yeeted today or later or whatever, there will be the replay on DLive. Now, I'm not going to say anything that I believe is yeetable, but you never know these days, right? And then also, I need to address that I'm supposed to have Aiden here, but you know, Aiden does what Aiden does. It says on her Discord that she's on there. So who knows? Maybe her computer's just up. Maybe it's just idle. And I've sent her the link and everything, but she told me she wanted to be here. So maybe she'll pop in like she did on Tuesday. It's just how it goes, right, guys? Ooh, we have violence and life over in the entropy. What's up, bud? All right, guys. So just scrolling through my various live streams here to make sure I'm caught up with everything. We'll kind of get into this. So first off, I just want to start with the very basic information here, guys. These are just straight numbers. And what I'm going to show you here is from Statistica. And I really like this website and all because they, unlike the CDC and other groups, they put the data out there in very readable, legible ways, and it's very tangible to most people. You don't have to be some sort of expert or person who needs to understand how to decode studies in order to read this. This is, as of June of 2021, by age and gender, the deaths in Australia. So 197, I think the black's female, right? So they've had a higher rate of female deaths than males in the older age groups. Part of this might be because women tend to live longer and there's probably fewer men in those age groups. Then you have the 80 to 90 range. And again, you have another 187. Interesting. And then the 70 to 80 range, or 79. You guys can obviously read it. And you have 54 deaths, 106 men, and then so forth. You can see, and it's dropping down. Now, if you heard the health minister, this is a very serious virus that can kill you. It seems quite strange to me. Let's see what additional information has to say. Nope, can't do it. Gotta buy it. Never mind. In any case, these deaths are very, very low. And if you look into why these health officials in Australia are locking things down, it's because they have something like 20 COVID cases. 20 cases here popped up. So we have to lock down. It's what they've been doing. And of course, it will destroy their economy. But everyone around the world is destroying their economies for some reason. It's almost like a bunch of people around the world were throwing out the slogan to build back better, and then we need a great reset. It's almost like that's happening. I don't know. Here we have the number of the COVID cases per 100,000 and population of Australia, and actually the numbers are quite low. Now, real quick, if I can juxtapose this with data in New York, and I will actually bring up some more stuff from New York here in a bit. These are by county. New York County, as you see, obviously New York City has the vast majority of the deaths. This is deaths, not just cases. And we can go down here, and if you go way, way, way down here, it's wonderful. Hamilton only has 2. So obviously the rules are different in different places for different reasons. This is the point of federalism, that we're not ruled from people who live, on high miles and miles away. So there's that. And then this is one of my favorite statistics. Now I'm using New York specifically because it's so high profile. Obviously, many of the lefties were covering this New York and talking about how great Cuomo was, and we found out that he murdered probably more people than any other American ever. I mean, at least directly by his actions, not in war, right? More people than bin Laden. So as of June 20th, 2021, by age group, this is what we're looking at again. 75 and older, you have a bunch of deaths. You have 65 through 74. And again, it's about 1,000. And we can see how this drops off markedly very quickly. Again, this is per 100,000. You can see, you can obviously do a little fraction there, right? Do a little division and figure out the actual percentage instead of just these raw numbers here. But we can see the younger people are at very low risk. Even someone in my age group, not a very high risk per 100,000. But again, the health minister said, do this, get a vaccine. This is very serious. Oh, you crazy anti-vaxxers that live on another planet. How dare you not do what the government says? See, I got a good chat going on over in Entropy. Coronavirus is a very well-trained killer. So well-trained, it can kill you by running you over and shooting you in the face by stabbing you. Yes. And all these things and more could happen to you. And the med examiner may just find that corona was what killed you. And we have Violence is Life saying Depop agenda, of course. And by the way, Shelly, hello. I see that you're there. So thanks for joining, as always. So as I was saying before, if you're coming in late, hopefully Aiden will join me eventually. I don't know what's up with her right now, but she, gets confused with time zone. This is, if you watch Aiden on anything, this is typical, not really worried about it. And I can run the stream on my own. So let's get back here to the Aussie numbers. Oh goodness, is this going to work right? Here we go. So again, deaths by age and gender, they're minimal. Now, let's do a quick Google search or DuckDuckGo here. Let's see here. Why did I do that? I don't want Austin. I want Australia. You guys might be wondering why I'm doing this in live time. Well, because I want to make sure that I have this correct, that my data isn't wrong, because these numbers are extraordinarily low. So from Worldometer, here are cases and here are deaths, not even 1,000 in the past year. Now we have more than 1,000 cases, but the death rate is quite low. So why am I presenting this, you might ask? Well, I'm presenting this because obviously this is not a justification to lock an entire country down, to require people to have vaccine passports to get a vaccine in the first place, which I don't know why politicians are pushing. This should be a thing, a conversation with your doctor. You should take health matters into your own hands and not be listening to the government. And by the way, folks, I'm sure I've said it numerous times before, when the government issues health advice, 90% of the time, historically, it has been to the detriment of the public. So, again, guys, just running through my chat real quick. Yeah, Val said it exactly. Yet Australia is locking down again. Exactly. So to the best of my ability, I'm going to try and read this. Because it's going to be a little janky. I have it on a screen over here, but I have my screen right here for the for ye old StreamYards. Oh, and then of course, Bill's always having issues with his mouse. All right. So the NSW has recorded 78 new cases. Chief Health Minister Kerry Kant and Health Minister Brad Hazard are urging people to get vaccinated. I guess I'll try to read it from here. Here we go. So we're urging people to get vaccinated with Chant reminding people what a serious illness it is, saying vaccines are incredibly effective at preventing hospitalization and death, and they are the way out. Well, that's interesting because my understanding is 80%, or no, sorry. I don't want to misspeak on a statistic. 60% of the people that are hospitalized with the COOF right now, at least in the UK, are people who have been vaccinated. And this is going to be the case, folks, because with numerous variants, and there's always going to be a variant. It's the same reason why we have flu vaccines run every year, and they're not always right on which variant is correct. But this is endemic now. It is here. It is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. Why would we assume that the vaccines are going to be the way out of this? I think more than anything, we need to live normal lives and protect the old folks that are at life expectancy anyways, because they're the ones who are really dying from this. Now, of course, there's conversations about obesity and health and whatever else that we could have. I'm not going to get into all that today. I've talked about it many times before, and I'm going to sit here and just, it's Friday afternoon and have a little PBR. So in any case, as we talk through this, it says they're effective at preventing hospitalization. Well, that's not necessarily true. Hazard has condemned people spreading misinformation about vaccines or minimizing the seriousness of the coof. My message is strongly to the community. There is only one solution here, and that is to get vaccinated. Dismiss the idea that aren't based in science, on medicine, or are propagated by anti-vaxxers who live in another universe. Book yourself for a vaccination. And this was just released a few days ago, of course. So a few other little things to see here. Residents to be required to show evidence of mask exemption. In New South Wales, Health Minister Brad Hazard, let me bigly this for you guys. I wonder if I can, this is going to mess me up too much here. Yeah, that'll be all right. So New South Wales Health Minister Brad Hazard says people who are unable to wear a mask due to medical or other reasons will soon be required to present evidence of their condition, meaning that they will have to go to a doctor, find the doctor that writes that off, and we'll see. We'll see how that works, right? It says that they can't wear it. He said that he has worked with health and instructed lawyers to prepare an amendment to the orders. If you don't wear a mask for what you say is a medical reason, you will be required to have a letter or other evidence from a registered medical practitioner explaining that this is actually a true situation, he said. He said restrictions haven't been imposed proportionately and sensibly. Really? Really? You don't even have 1,000 dead. You've probably been one of the best nations to cover that, to escape this over in Australia, by the way, folks. They've been doing really well. I mentioned this maybe Monday on the show. I don't recall. But they have been doing really well, but in their doing really well, they've been locking everyone down. Now, the place that had the longest lockdown that I'm aware of was Argentina, and they did not do well. They did really, really poorly. I covered this quite a while ago, probably last year sometime. I haven't been covering a lot of this stuff lately, but it's just, again, what is the purpose of this? You could say it's for public health all you want, but the evidence does not support that. Again, we don't all know dozens of people dying of this thing on a daily basis. At least I don't. It seems quite strange to me that we have to go through all these extra precautions and things just to get through this. We have to lock down and we have to track everybody. Everybody has to get vaxxed, and there's no way out of this, yet you only have 1,000 people in your country that have passed away. It's mind-boggling. Of course, it could just be that whole opportunity to have a great reset thing that Klaus Schwab said. And Thane, I saw your comment. PBR is the best. Next to High Life, the champagne of beers. I used to be a big beer snob, bud. All I do now is just drink cheap beer. So I got this last night. My wife wanted wine, And I was like, okay, we'll get some wine. It's Thursday. Relax. I don't have any streams. I don't have anything to do. Yesterday, I mean, I worked out, but other than that, I took yesterday off because I'm, believe it or not, guys, I'm hustling like 24/7 usually. Uh, even outside of this, I'm usually doing stuff. So, in any case, you are wrong, and you can go ahead and unsub now. Sten's here. Hey, they corrected the number. It's 60% unvaccinated, which leaves 40% some level of vax in the hospital. Right. Right. So this is, again, it's just strange, right? Why would they do this? It doesn't seem to be justified when this is their case number and death count and recovery. I mean, and I would say in general, I would assume in general, most Aussies are probably a lot healthier than a lot of people in the Western world. I know they have some issues, uh, like a lot of the Western world, because we all eat crap, but I'm not, I would have to see some fat Australians because I have not seen very many of them. But I've never been to Australia, so it's hard to say. In any case, guys, so then we have, oh, didn't mean to bring that up twice. Well, I thought I had another article here, but no worries at all. I'm awesome at this, guys. Really awesome. In any case, it is quite again, a very, very strange thing to do, right? And I want to see. I guess I did cover all the articles. No, wait a minute. That was a different article. Hold on. Health Minister. This is why I have a tank. He doesn't work out that well either, though. Okay. This is the lockdown restrictions updated to Sydney, Orange, and regional coronavirus rules explained. All right. So, get this back in here. There it is. That's right, Shelly. You got to send me money if you want me to drink good beer. At least drink Yingling thing. That's what I used to drink when I was in my 20s. If I went out to the bar, that's what I always drank. And then I went to Corona for a while because it's light, it's easy, but it's imported, so it's like a whole dollar more expensive. PBR though's cheap as hell. This is 24 ounces and it's like $1.20 or something. So yeah, Shelly's right though. I'm poor. I'm very poor. Personally, I am, that's for sure. So let's go over this. COVID restrictions for Greater Sydney, including residents in the Fairfield, Canterbury, Bankstown, and Liverpool LGAs, the Central Coast, Blue Mountains, and the Wollongong have been extended, with new restrictions announced for Orange, Blaney, and well, whatever. I'm not going to try and say all these Aussie names because I'm probably not pronouncing them right. It says they have announced stricter lockdown restrictions for Greater Sydney, including residents in the Fairfield, Canterbury, Bankstown, and Liverpool local government areas, as well as the Central Coast, Blue Mountains, and Wilfong, in place until the 30th of July. As of Wednesday, the 21st, lockdown restriction applies to yada, yada, yada. Tighter lockdowns aimed at achieving 0 new cases. So if that's the rule, it's going to be an impossibility because this is endemic. It's here, right? How are we going to have 0 cases? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Not sure says he's here. Goodings. Juan Cholo. Shadeversity was a Shad from Shadversity was a little hefty. working out and is now okay. From Shad to Chad. Okay. Sure. I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, buddy, but whatever. Seems everyone entry me real quick. They have Tim Tam challenge. Sin says if you're really worried about the coof, get healthier. If you are immunocompromised and can't get any better, then it sucks to be you. But you're on a short list waiting for your number to get called. You know, and that, Stin, that's actually kind of how I feel about some of the stuff. It's like these folks are already very, very unhealthy. Most the cases originally put out there by the BBC, by a doctor they interviewed. Many of the cases, these people would have died within a year, meaning they would have been taken off the excess death rate for this. It's what they do every year. They correct these numbers. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are just not in good health that weren't going to make it too long anyways. And this thing put them over the edge. Does that mean I want people to die? No. But what are we going to do about it? How are we going to change the natural course of life? As I always say, memento mori, remember you shall die. So another a-hole says, indeed, a bit of a basic sick care and beer cough goes poof. All right. All right, guys. So I will meant to remove that. I am just really great at all this. In any case, I was saying I was hoping to have Aiden, and you know, it is what it is. It's kind of a meme at this point, right, guys? If you guys don't know. But we're going to move on into the next topic. And just so my computer isn't overloaded, I have to get the tabs up. So I got little sections of this. So bear with me for a second, please. And we will have everything up here in just a moment. All right. So from Yahoo News, right? Don't listen to the vax conspiracy theorist, says the health minister of Australia. Yet from Yahoo News, what to know about the Guillain-Barré or whatever syndrome, and it's linked to Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now, if you guys didn't know, this isn't the mRNA vaccine. This is just the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. This was from a few days ago. They have updated this as a warning to the vax, to the jab. And it says the Food and Drug Administration announced on July 12th that it is updating the label on the Johnson & Johnson vaccine to include a warning about the risk of developing the Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS, a rare and sometimes deadly autoimmune disorder in which the body attacks and damages nerves, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. It's really interesting because if I'm not mistaken, I think this is the same disease that they used, or sorry, that occurred in folks in the 1960s pandemic or late 70s with the swine flu. Again, where they panicked. They had 4 people on a military base. I think it was an army base. It was Fort Bragg, if I'm not mistaken. And they had like 4 people who tested positive for the swine flu, and they vaccinated the entire population with a rushed vax, and thousands, tens of thousands of people got basically neurological disorders and sued the companies. Now, today, we can't sue anybody. The FDA hasn't even approved of this, but they have been given immunity. So it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter if you're hurt by this. You have no recourse. You're screwed. So let me see if I can find this real quick. I'm sure you guys have seen it 1,000,001 times. But let's watch this real quick. All right, hold on 1 second. Let me check chat real quick. There's no one. Sten said there's NOM getting out of this life. All right. At my home country, we had a secret panel of experts deciding how they could best make people accept a zero COVID regime. Says not sure. Yeah, no doubt. Chad is an Aussie that has a history channel called Shadversity. Okay. He was the first Aussie I could think of. Oh, okay. Okay. Good to go. All right, guys. Let me hopefully this will have good audio. But let's look at this again. I'm sure you all have probably seen this 1,000,001 times. This is the 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace that covered this. Guys, let me know if there's no volume.
The flu season is upon us. Which type will we worry about this year? And what kind of shots will we be told to take? Remember the swine flu scare of 1976? That was the year the U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot. And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death, allegedly triggered by the flu shot. We pick up the story back in 1976 when the threat posed by the swine flu virus seemed very real indeed.
This virus was the cause of a pandemic in 1918 and 1919 that resulted in over 500,000 deaths in the United States, as well as 20 million deaths around the world.
See how easy it is to... Thus, the U.S. government's publicity machine was cranked into action to urge all America to protect itself against the swine flu menace.
Influenza is serious business. During major flu epidemics, millions of people are sick and thousands die. Well, this year you can get protection. The vaccines are safe, easy to take, and they can protect you against flu. So roll up your sleeve. Protect yourself.
One of those who did roll up her sleeve was Judy Roberts. She was perfectly healthy, an active woman, when in November of 1976, she took her shot. 2 weeks later, she says, she began to feel a numbness starting up her legs.
I joked about it at that time. I said, I'll be numb to the knees by Friday if this keeps up. By the following week, I was totally paralyzed.
So completely paralyzed, in fact, that they had to operate on her to enable her to breathe. And for 6 months, Judy Roberts was a quadriplegic. The diagnosis? A neurological disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS for short. These neurological...
And there it was. There it was. There was Bill's memory going into action right there. So we are dealing with the exact same thing today. Imagine that, a rushed vaccine causing the same thing that a rushed vaccine caused 40 years ago. Incredible. All right, I'm going to keep playing this just for you all, if you like. I'm sure most of you have seen it, but I'm going to keep playing it.
Neurological diseases are little understood. They affect people in different ways. As you can see in these home movies taken by a friend, Judy Roberts' paralysis confined her mostly to a wheelchair for over a year. But this disease can even kill. Indeed, there are 300 claims now pending from the families of GBS victims who died, allegedly as a result of the swine flu shot. In other GBS victims, the crippling effects diminish and all but disappear. But for Judy Roberts, progress back to good health has been painful and partial. Now, I noticed that your smile, Judy, is a little bit constricted.
Yes, it is.
Is it different from what it used to be?
Very different. I have a greatly decreased mobility in my lips. And I can't drink through a straw on the right-hand side. I can't blow out birthday candles. I don't whistle anymore, for which my husband is grateful.
It may be a little difficult for you to answer this question, but have you recovered as much as you are going to recover?
Yes, this is it.
So you will now have a legacy of braces on your legs for the rest of your life?
Yes, the weakness in my hands will stay, and the leg braces will stay.
So Judy Roberts and her husband have filed a claim against the U.S. government. They're asking $12 million, though they don't expect to get nearly that much. Judy, why did you take the flu shot?
I'd never taken any other flu shots, but I felt like this was going to be a major epidemic. And the only way to prevent a major epidemic of a really deadly variety of flu was for everybody to be immunized.
Where did this so-called deadly variety of flu, where did it first hit back in 1976? It began right here at Fort Dix in New Jersey in January of that year, when a number of recruits began to complain of respiratory ailments, something like the common cold. An Army doctor here sent samples of their throat cultures to the New Jersey Public Health Lab to find out just what kind of bug was going around here. One of those samples was from a Private David Lewis who had left his sickbed to go on a forced march. Private Lewis had collapsed on that.
Do Army dogs clap when you do marches? That's gay. That's really gay. No Marine would be caught dead doing that.
March, and the sergeant had revived him by mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, but the sergeant showed no signs of illness. A few days later, Private Lewis died.
If this disease is so potentially fatal that it's going to kill a young, healthy man, a middle-aged school teacher doesn't have prayer.
The New Jersey lab identified most of those soldiers' throat cultures as the normal kind of flu virus going around that year, but they could not make out what kind of virus was in the culture from the dead soldier and from 4 others who were sick. So they sent those cultures to the Federal Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia, for further study. A few days later, they got the verdict: swine flu. But that much publicized outbreak of swine flu at Fort Dix involved only Private Lewis, who died, and those 4 other soldiers who recovered completely.
Well, hey, looks like I got a Jeremy in the chat. It's been a while. Hey, buddy, how you doing, man? Hey, Holly. Good to see you. Supposed to have Aiden here. Maybe she'll show up eventually, depending on how long I stream. So, is what it is. But thanks for joining us, guys. Anyways, let's play this. Keep playing it.
Without the swine flu shot.
If I had known at that time that the boy had been in a sickbed, got up, went out on a forced march, and then collapsed and died, I would never have taken the shot.
The rationale for our recommendation was not on the basis of the death of a single individual, but it was on the basis that when we do see a change in the characteristics of the influenza virus, it is a massive public health problem in this country.
Dr. David Sencer,
A bureaucrat, just like Anthony Fauci,
then head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, is now in private industry. He devised the swine flu program, and he pushed it. You began to give flu shots to the American people in October of '76.
October 1st.
By that time, how many cases of swine flu around the world had been reported?
There had been several reported, but none confirmed. There had been cases in Australia that were reported by the press, by the news media. There were cases in...
None confirmed. Did you ever uncover any other outbreaks of swine flu anywhere in the world?
No.
Now, nearly everyone was to receive the shot in a public health facility where a doctor might not be present. Therefore, it was up to the CDC to come up with some kind of official consent form, giving the public all the information it needed about the swine flu shot. This form stated that the swine flu vaccine had been tested. What it didn't say was that after those tests were completed, the scientists developed another vaccine, and that was the one given to most of the 46 million who took the shot. That vaccine was called X53A. Was X53...
guys, I'm hearing my daughter scream like crazy, and Jeremy says something. So I'm going to let this play, and I'm going to basically go off camera for a minute, make sure my wife's all right. But I promise you, I'll be right back. I will be here. All right, so let it play, and I'll be right back, guys. I'm going to make sure I get my daughter calmed down. my wife isn't going nuts.
3A ever field tested?
I can't say. I would have to.
It wasn't.
I don't know.
Well, I would think that you're in charge of the program.
I would have to check the records. I haven't looked at this in some time.
The information form, the consent form, was also supposed to warn people about any risks of serious complications following the shot. But did it?
No, I had never heard of any reactions other than a sore arm, fever, this sort of thing.
Judy Roberts' husband, Gene, also took the shot.
Yes, I looked at that document. I signed it. Nothing on there said I was going to have a heart attack or I get Guillain-Barré, which I never heard of.
What if people from the government, from the Center for Disease Control, what if they had indeed known about it? What would be your feeling?
They should have told us.
Did anyone ever come to you and say, you know something, fellas? There's the possibility of neurological damage if you get into a mass immunization program?
No.
No one ever did?
No.
Do you know Michael Hatwick?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Dr. Michael Hatwick directed the surveillance team for the swine flu program at the CDC. His job was to find out what possible complications could arise from taking the shot and to report his findings to those in charge. Did you know ahead of time, Dr. Hatwick, that there had been case reports of neurological disorders, neurological illness, apparently associated with the injection of influenza vaccine?
Absolutely.
You did?
Yes.
How'd you know that?
By review of the literature.
So you told your superiors, the men in charge of the swine flu immunization program, about the possibility of neurological disorders?
Absolutely.
What would you say if I told you that your superiors say that you never told them about the possibility of neurological complications?
That's nonsense. I can't believe that they would say that they did not know that there were neurological illnesses associated with influenza vaccination. That simply is not true. We did know that.
I've said that Dr. Hatwick has never told me of his feelings on this subject.
Then he's lying.
Good.
I guess you would have to make that assumption.
Then why does this report from your own agency, dated July 1976, list neurological complications as a possibility?
I think the consensus of the scientific community was that the evidence relating neurologic disorders to influenza immunization was such that they did not feel that this association was a real one.
You didn't feel it was necessary to tell the people that information?
I think that over the years we have tried to inform the American people as fully as possible.
As part of informing Americans about the swine flu threat, Dr. Sensor's CDC also helped create the advertising to get the public to take the shot. Let me read to you from one of your own agency's memos planning the campaign to urge Americans to take the shot. The swine flu vaccine has been taken by many important persons, he wrote. Example, President Ford, Henry Kissinger, Elton John, Muhammad Ali, Mary Tyler Moore, Rudolph Nureyev, Walter Cronkite, Ralph Nader, Edward Kennedy, etc., etc. True?
I'm not familiar with that particular piece of paper, but I do know that at least of that group, President Ford did take the vaccination.
Did you talk to these people beforehand to find out if they planned to take the shot?
I did not know.
Did anybody?
I do not know.
Did you get permission to use their names in your campaign?
I do not know.
Mary, did you take a swine flu shot?
No, I did not.
Did you give them permission to use your name saying that you had or were going to?
Absolutely not. Never did.
Did you ask your own doctor about taking the swine flu shot?
Yes, and at the time he thought it might be a good idea. But I resisted it because I was leery of having the symptoms that sometimes go with that kind of inoculation.
So you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Have you spoken to your doctor since?
Yes.
And?
He's delighted that I didn't take that shot.
You're in charge. Somebody's in charge.
This
is your advertising strategy that I have a copy of here.
Who's it signed by?
This one is unsigned. But you'll acknowledge that it was your baby, so to speak.
It could have been from Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It could be from CDC. I don't know.
So anyways, guys, I'm not going to, there's another 4 minutes of this, but Obviously, I got a baby now. So you guys can go find this. Obviously, swine flu fraud 1976, 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace is this particular one. And Variety Weekly News. I don't know. I just Googled it real quick. It came up. And this is Fiona. Those of you who haven't seen. And she was basically downstairs screaming her head off, and I just came and got her, and she's fine. I like her looking a little cross-eyed there. That's what newborns do that. So their eyes can't quite track yet. Anyways, yeah, not sure. Yeah, she is quite healthy. We went to the doctor's office yesterday, actually, and they will vaccinate babies for hepatitis, and we said no. We're probably gonna be switching doctors anyways, but I knew the doc, so we needed to pick someone, the pediatrician, right off the bat. And we're not like anti-vax or anything, but we just for sure we want to delay because the vaccination schedule is crazy. They don't even really have an immune system with a firstborn. It's very, very weak. It doesn't get well developed until 2 or 3 months, and really after the first year of life. And so he said, well, why not? Why wouldn't you want to get that? And it's like, well, neither one of us have hepatitis. He said, well, some women don't know, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, pretty sure we're clear on this. And in fact, actually, when I worked at the hospital, I had couldn't find my immunization record, so had to get the antibody test. And I was in the military, guys. I've obviously been inoculated from hepatitis, but apparently the vax didn't work, and I didn't have the antibodies. So I had to get revaxed, and actually I didn't finish the schedule because I ended up quitting my job. So, but the point is that he, was saying that, and I was saying, well, we're her immune system. She didn't have an immune system yet, or my wife said that. And he goes, well, no, she has an immune system. And I'm like, yeah, it's very, very weak though, man. It's not like developed. Come on, get out of here. We don't need to be vaccinating babies. So there is one, there's a HIV vaccine, which is, I forget the name of the influenza strain. It's actually a bacteria, but they call it influenza. And it's a common bacteria that lives in your body, but there can be overgrowths, and it can cause, infants to die or at least get sick. And it's like, okay, but do I really need a vaxxer from this thing? Like, didn't people live for millennia without all this stuff? So I don't know. But anyways, on with the stream. Holly says, I was alive for this, yet another plague. Breast milk will help with immunity. Well, yeah, that's all she does is breastfeed. And my wife's gotten her to latch quite easily. See over here on Entropy, Val says she's so beautiful. Well, of course, Val, she's my kid. Come on. And my wife's a rather lovely woman too, and my daughter's a pretty little girl. So, well, she's not so much a little girl anymore, but yeah, that is my my near 17-year-old. So we are kind of blessed with that. In any case, so as I had up here before I played that, what? We're going to try this, guys. We're going to stream with the baby. Anywhere between 3,000 and 6,000 people developed GBS syndrome each year per the CDC. For some people, a full recovery just takes a few weeks. For others, it can take a few years. Okay. Well, now you're going to be fussy. All right, guys, give me 1 sec. And I'm back. All right. So, and now she's screaming again, but it's mom's problem now. For some people, a full recovery just takes a few weeks. For others, it can take a few years. Reports of adverse events follow use of the Janssen vax under emergency authorization suggest an increase of risk during the 42 days following. 42 days. And here it says the FDA says in a updated fact sheet. Get that pulled up. However, the FDA notes that there isn't enough data to prove that the vaccine actually causes GBS. Okay. While the Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech vaccines have been linked with GBS, other common vaccines have not been linked. Other common vaccines have. So, anyways, we could go through all this. I'm not really too worried about it. Let's go to the CDC directly. 27-page fact sheet. Bet people are reading this like all the time, right? Summary of instruction for vax providers, description, dosage and administration, yada, yada, yada. Dosing and scheduling, preparation, administration, contradictions. So don't give it to people with severe allergic reactions, anaphylaxis. That's pretty important. Management of acute allergic reactions, blah, blah, blah. Thrombosis. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, all this is your choice, folks. You want to get vaxxed or not. But our politicians and bureaucrats, like those in Australia, are saying you have to get this if you want to go back to normal. Some people have these issues. Thrombosis is a major issue. It says, report of adverse events following the use of the Janssen vaccine under emergency use authorization suggests an increased risk of thrombosis involving the cerebral venous sinus and other sites, meaning that if that happens, you're going to have a bad time. Combined with thrombocytopenia and with onset of symptoms approximately 1 or 2 weeks after vaccination. 1 or 2 weeks. The reporting rate of thrombosis with thrombocytopenia following administration of the vax has been highest in females ages 18 through 49. Some cases have been fatal. And again, I'm not saying anything here, guys, that isn't public health record. So when YouTube comes to eat me, it's going to be like, what are you going to do? What are you going to tell me? Because I'm just reading what the CDC says, right? So we can go through all that. Here is the GBS. Reports of adverse events following the use of the Janssen COVID vax under emergency use authorization suggest an increased risk of GBS syndrome following the 42 days after the vaccination. 42 days. Would you even think that most people would even understand that and report that in VAERS? Or report it at all, or even tell their doctor, even realize they just start having neurological problems? How many people would not even relate these events? Like, this is dangerous stuff. I say all the time, we don't have leadership in our government. We don't. We have a bunch of middle manager types. Mostly we have a bunch of, greedy SOBs who want to dictate to you how to live. But 42 days in none of these politicians, that health minister in Australia, are going, hey, these are potential things. Maybe you should really talk to your doctor. Maybe you have, certain risk of side effects. I know someone personally, friend of my wife's, her and her boyfriend were just over here a couple days ago, gave me a haircut last week. So all that good stuff, right? So these are friends of ours, and she can't take the vax because she's got some health conditions. Is she going to be excluded from society then? And again, I'm not telling you what to do, guys. I wouldn't do that. No, I think that most of you, if you're healthy, you should be fine. I'll tell you what I think, but I'm not telling you what to do. Politicians love to tell you what to do. Any case, let's see. I got stuff in the in me chats here. Did I do this again, guys? I'm sorry. So I was going to read some chat. I'm so bad at this. I'm so bad. This is why I need a producer. A producer better than Tank. Anyways, I was reading these. Not sure said bacterial vax makes sense, not for a virus. I lost my spot here. Thane said, I didn't know they did HEP for infants. I got one not too long ago for first aid. Yeah, I think it's Hep B they vaccinate against. But it's like, unless you're sexually active or whatever, there's no risk. It's silly. Sweet baby, such a good daddy. I was saying I try. I think I had myself turned off there. I think pretty sure it's out of the studio there, right? Sorry about that, guys. Again, not the best with the production side of things. You don't watch me for that. But yeah, my ex, when my daughter was little, didn't take care of her much, so I kind of had to be there. So I'm kind of very hands-on. But I also know my wife now, given this is her first baby, she kind of needs to be thrown into the fire every now and again. So how I feel about it, guys. Sometimes you got to be thrown in the fire. Let's see. Skin tight STU. This is selfish, but part of the reason why I want to have Australia open is because I haven't gotten to enjoy my honeymoon with my wife yet. Big sad. Well, partner, I mean, I understand. Like, we have friends. We went to Washington State last year who had a wedding, and they had to keep canceling it because of Washington State's stupid restrictions. And the thing is we went to this like little kind of planned community / vacation rental community thing, and they had this like nice town hall there, and it was mostly outdoors, and none of us cared. And that's the thing. That's a big problem I have. I don't care. Other people don't care. I would take the risk, and I know we can say, well, we got to protect grandmother, but at some point you're basically saying old people that have lived their lives, that are probably going to die soon. I'm not saying that they need to die tomorrow either, but I'm just saying that they've lived their entire lives, have to be protected from the young people that need to live their lives yet. And that's silly. Do we need to protect those folks? Yes. But the young people living their lives need to live their lives in order for, society and humanity to continue. We can't just go, oh, you young people, too bad. Granny, who's going to die in 6 months anyways, she can't get the coof. It's just dumb. It's dumb logic. Let's say. Most people are very stupid. Well, there you go. A person is smart. People are stupid. All right. So there's that. Let's see. What do we got over in entropy? Not a lot. Standard issue, slimy bureaucrats. Yep. And mittens on the baby when you have a beard. Good idea. Whatever. My beard's not even that long. She can grab it. Don't bother me. Shelly told me that once. No big deal. If you guys didn't know, I live most of my life in pain anyways. Not a joke. I been pretty good recently because I've been doing a lot of prehab stuff that's been good for my knees and my hip. But yeah. All right, let's get back into it. I got at least another hour, guys. Another hour. Hopefully this one will go a little bit smoother. So CDC veers more vax deaths than COOF. Now, this is some random site, but this was true based on the VAERS data this past week. This actually happened. So if anything gets me yeeted, guys, it will be this. This will get me this will give me a strike real quick, probably. But who knows? I'm going to talk about it regardless. I've seen a few other people talk about it. So it says, and this is happening 2 weeks in a row. All right. Yeah. I don't need to get on your Telegram or any of that stuff. 2 weeks ago, VAERS reported a 6,985 deaths due to the COOF vaccine. Sorry, due to the vaccine. Last week, that number jumped to 9,000. The number is now 11. I think it's up to 12,000 or something like that. Now, the database contains information on verified reports of adverse events, illness, health problems, and or symptoms. And again, these things are in the vast majority, and I'm going to show you this. The vast majority of people get vaxxed. This is a low incidence, but still, you don't know. I would honestly rather just take my chances with the COOF, right? It's me personally. I mean, because the way I see it, for most people, it's just a cold. At least now, maybe before it was worse. And we're getting all hyped up over this whole Delta variant and the Lambda and whatever else is out there. And they're less lethal. They're more infectious, but less lethal. We're basically now going around freaking out like a bunch of morons about, minor illnesses that make us feel yucky for a few days. Says there have been over 400,000 adverse reactions reported to the vaccine. Last week, there was 1,918 total deaths in the United States from the COOF. Total from the COOF. And there were 2,000 from the vax. Imagine that. So here's just another one, reiterating what I just talked about. For the second consecutive week, the VAERS database recorded more deaths following getting the vax than the COOF fatalities. It says, the database contains information on verified reports of adverse events, illness, health problems, and or symptoms following immunization with U.S. licensed vaccines. Reports are accepted from anyone and can be submitted electronically. Last week, there were nearly 2,000 deaths from the COOF and about 2,000 from the vaccines, suggesting 174 more people died after receiving the jab rather than the virus itself. Again, these aren't great numbers. I'm not going to sit here and hype this up like there's some big risk for either or, but when these numbers are basically approaching each other, you got to be a bit suspicious of why you would even take this risk, the potential risk that you might have an adverse side effect, when most likely, if you're healthy, if you eat well, if you get your sunlight, your vitamin D, you get your all your vitamins and minerals in general, you're going to be fine. In total, 2 weeks, VAERS reported 6,985 deaths of individuals after receiving the vax. Last week, it reached 9,048. And this week, it spiked to 11,140. CDC data illustrates a surge in the number of deaths following vaccination. According to VAERS, only 10% of adverse events are reported, meaning that we can multiply that number by 10. Technically, wouldn't mean it would be true, but yeah. Did you guys hear about this? Sure you have. This is from NPR. Nice leftist news organization, you know. COVID vaccine teens and myocarditis, what you may need to know. Now, the military has found this out as well. I don't need to go through article after article after article, but again, you guys are probably somewhat aware of this, but the point of this is to present the information to people who maybe aren't aware or help you guys find it. And very importantly, to juxtapose this to what the Australian health minister was saying. What was he saying? He's saying, everyone, go get the jab. If you don't get the jab, we're never going to get out of this. This is not how we do medicine, folks. We don't just say, everyone go do this. It's not how it works. People need to be treated individually. And that was a thing yesterday with taking my daughter to the doc. And well, he's actually a PA, but either way, you know, the guy's treated me before. I know him. He was suggested. I was like, okay. But I told my wife after our first visit, and they wanted us to mask up. I was like, we probably don't need to come back here. 4 weeks later, we come back, and yeah, and I was like, yeah, we're probably not going to come back. And he straight up told me, he goes, well, I'll work with you guys if you want to delay vaccinations, but if you're not going to do all the vaccinations, we can't. I won't be able to. I can't see you. But I told my wife too, they're part of a big medical facility. There's a hospital that's a part of the facility right beside it. So of course they're going to do all these top-down standard things. They're not going to have a practice that is individualized. And I told them that up front. I said, I understand you need to balance these two things, the individual and the public, that's what you're doing. But I only care about me. I mean, this is the reality. I only care about me and my family. And that doesn't mean I'm going to get other people sick or anything like that. But the risk to the public is minimal for things like, I don't know, my daughter getting vaxxed for hepatitis, right? It's more about her, is it not? Or the whatever it's called, the HIV vax that I was talking about, that's some sort of bacterial influenza thing. That's on her. It's not going to spread to a bunch of other people. And the COVID side of things, of course, we know that children don't really spread it. We've known that for a long time, although that's controversial, apparently. That might get me yeeted. Everything's going to get me yeeted today, folks. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has recommended that everyone 12 and older get vaccinated against the COV. No, that's just ridiculous. And it's ridiculous based on the numbers of who's affected. According to the CDC last week, around 7 million U.S. teens and preteens ages 12 through 17 have received one last dose. Or, sorry, at least one dose. I don't know why I read that way. Dyslexia, guys. Still soon after the Food and Drug Administration authorized the use of the Pfizer vaccine in young people, federal agencies began receiving reports of mild chest pain or other signs of possible heart inflammation, known as myocarditis, in young people. Now, if you guys weren't aware of the problems that were happening with people with the COV, it was happening to folks that had basically heart issues, atherosclerosis, that is the hardening of the arteries, things like that. So this, if it causes a myocarditis, means that you're actually going to be more susceptible to hospitalization with the COV. So, according to the CDC, after a meeting of experts, advisors discussed the data Wednesday, more than 300 cases of heart inflammation have been documented after the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. The cases have been seen mostly in teens and young adults between the ages of 12 and 39. Not something I would want to put my 12-year-old or my 17-year-old now, through. We don't want to start her off with heart disease in her youth. Symptoms can include chest pain or pressure or temporary abnormal ECG and blood test results. Naturally occurring heart inflammation is rare, but it does occur from time to time in teens and young adults. But the rates seen after these vaccines is slightly higher than a background rate. The CDC says the findings do not change the basic recommendations that all people, 12 and older, should be vaxxed. Why? The data doesn't bear that out, because the chances anyone under the age of 50 of dying from this are utterly abysmal. They almost don't exist, except for in folks that are severely obese, have heart issues already, diabetes, those things, right? Comorbidities. However, if a person develops myocarditis after the first dose of one of the mRNA vaccines, a second dose should be delayed until the condition has fully resolved and the heart has returned to a normal state. So should parents and teens hesitate to have their kids vaccinated against the COOF? Vaccine experts and American Academy of Pediatrics say, no, don't hesitate. It's good for doctors and patients to be aware there might be a connection between the mRNA vaccines and heart inflammation, and report it to their pediatricians anything they see in the first week after vaccination. But it is also important, the CDC notes, to recognize that even if this does turn out to be an extremely rare side effect, most patients who receive care respond well to medicine and rest and quickly felt better. Okay. So what is myocarditis? Well, it's the inflammation of the heart muscles, of course. And the pericarditis, that's part of the sac and the pleural sac and all that stuff. And I don't need to get into an anatomy lesson, but essentially, guys, it's the area of your heart. And when your heart enlarges, it presses up against your lungs and your chest cavity and the pleural cavity, and it can't pump properly because it's overly expanded and you can't breathe right, which then exacerbates the problem. In fact, last week I had to cancel the Inch Justify the Memes because my dog, my wife's dog, was going through exactly this. He's got to take medicine every day now because his heart's so inflamed. So, but no, it's not a big deal. It's cool. Long before the pandemic. Oh, so, you don't need to worry about it because it happened before. Thousands of cases of myocarditis were diagnosed in the US and around the world each year. Amazing that thousands of cases happened each year. Wow. Often triggering the bodies. And notice it just says thousands. I actually want to click on this. I want to see what it says. Oh, whatever. It's understanding myocarditis. So it says 3.1 million cases of myocarditis were diagnosed in 2017. Statistics posted in Lancet November 2018 because many individuals and even physicians are unfamiliar with this condition. Myocarditis Foundation was established in 2005. Okay, whatever. You guys can go find that if you want. So often triggered by the body's immune response to infection, SARS-CoV-2, the virus that caused COVID-19. Wait, SARS-CoV-2 is COVID-19. What do you mean the virus that causes COVID-19? This is NPR. SARS-CoV-2 and COVID-19 are synonymous, guys. This isn't AIDS and HIV, or HIV and AIDS, I should say. HIV, the virus that causes the, what is it? The immunodeficiency syndrome or whatever that stands for AIDS. That's not what this, I don't know. I don't know. And so can cold viruses. Yeah, a cold virus is, COVID. I think 5 known COVID strains cause the common cold. 40 to 50%, depending on what numbers you read. Strep and HIV. Yeah, I'm sure HIV can trigger it. Other causes include toxins and allergens. Symptoms include chest pain and shortness of breath, as often mild enough to go unnoticed, but a full-blown case in adults can cause arrhythmias, a heart failure, and require careful treatment. And this is what may potentially happen to your kids, all for something that really is not a risk to them. And I don't care how many times doctors want to repeat that it's some sort of risk. It's not, the data does not bear that out. So I don't know. All these people are nuts. Just want to tell you what to do. Want to depopulate the world. Run and control everything. Here we go. That's why I didn't bring them all up. I had her up here. So yeah, I have a bunch of other articles on this. But it's important, guys. It's important because when you have someone in charge who's in power telling people this is what you must go do, and they're not giving you any of the warnings, right? And they're saying you have to do this. And we know that it has adverse side effects. They might be rare, but we know that. And they're saying, no, bigot, take the jab. Do it anyways. What are you going to do? And the people in Australia, they have no recourse. They don't have any guns or anything. I'm not trying to get into a war with the government or anything, but mind you, threaten my family, see what happens. And I'm a pacifist. I'm telling you right now, that will change really quickly, unfortunately, because I know my mental, emotional state is going to change based on the fact that you are threatening the most important and precious things in my life. So many people are unwilling to take the stand, right? They're unwilling to fight back or push back. Now, we just heard Joe Biden saying he wants to take all the guns away. Now, he's been saying that, right? But he was saying, what, magazines, any magazines to hold 20 or 30 rounds? Oh, well, give me a 10-round magazine, dude. I actually got a 20-round magazine loaded up in one of my ARs for reasons. But give me a 10-round magazine, dude, because I can do some pretty slick magazine changes. You know, I'm a little rusty, but it won't take me very long to get it back down. Like a week's worth of practice. Anyways, regardless of that, like, what is he saying? What's he trying to do? He's just trying to outlaw all the guns. Why is that? Well, because we're ramping up. We're ramping up everything. The Great Reset, this whole vax thing, we're ramping up to enslave American people. It is not a nation for the people and by the people anymore. It is a nation of for the government and by the government. All right. Enough of me running my mouth. I'm going to read some chat real quick and then we'll get into some other stuff. You guys on Entropy got really quiet, but that's all right. Juan Cholo says, this is not, kids are the absolute least likely to die from the coof. Exactly. See if I have everything on D Live. Nope. No one on D Live. You see, Matt showed up. Thanks for showing up, buddy. Holly says, 14 months to slow the spread. That's right. Holly, you still, you guys still not locked down anymore up there? Or are you back to being locked down? I haven't looked at any Canadian news in a while. I missed you on the weekly narrative too. I didn't end up watching the whole show Tuesday, but I was asking where you were at. You and Aussies. Didn't see Aussies in the chat either. All right, not so sure. So good night, lads. Nice stream. I will be back. Well, appreciate it, partner. If you guys don't know, if you do come back to watch or whatever, you don't know, the Entropy stream is in the links to the description. Should be in the links on D Live too, as well as the YouTube. Now, you guys can go over there if you want to give a donation, you can, or not even, donation wise. If you just want to have some spicy chat, in which you are free to say as you please. Entropy is the place. Let's see. Matt says because they need data. I don't know what that's in reference to, but it says to improve their legally protected experimentation. Yes, yes. Because this isn't about protecting your children. No, it's not. It's not at all. The only people that really need to be protected of this are at life expectancy. That's just the reality. You mean like every other disease you're not healthy, you could die of, fall off? Or cut, honestly, yeah. Holly says, exercise, sun, fresh air, good food, sleep, and limit your stress or find healthy coping mechanisms. Yes, everything in moderation, kids. You live a long, healthy life. Listen to Based Holly. Oh, yes, Kizza, that's changing the subject. Democrats forced women to sign up for the draft. Will women now vote Republican? Doubt it. Women should have been in the draft forever if they want voting rights. That was the original argument. We once in the United States lived in a Heinlein style society where service guaranteed your citizenship or your suffrage, where you could vote. Not everyone could vote originally, which I actually like because I think most people were idiots. Not because I'm trying to be disparaging of them, just saying most people have no clue. They watch the idiot box and they just believe everything that it says. And these are often very intelligent people, but they don't use their brains. But yeah, I would prefer that like maybe we can do like a merit-based voting system. I think Black Pigeon Speak talked about this. So if we had like if you're a homeowner and maybe you owned a business and maybe, I don't know, something else, like those each give you a point toward your vote. So your vote actually counts more if you are more involved in the community. It's an interesting idea. For me, generally, I would say all this is going to be solved pretty easily if we just stick to Dunbar's number, right? Maybe not Dunbar's number. 150 people is a small group, but let's scale that up to about 15,000 maybe. I think that's like max, the best you can do. And after that, it's time to break off and split up. And even that's a lot of people to deal with. They're going hog wild with the mass human experimentation. Why the hell shouldn't they if they got the go-ahead for the major states in the West? Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's see here. Holly said she was arguing on Facebook about how the couve isn't recognized by the immune system, and that's why it's so dangerous. Like, what the F you think happens? Yeah. What's this? They have carte blanche to the human immune system and are taking full advantage. Hard and fast data from the early immune system is too important. Yes. All right, guys. So let me check back here on the entropies. All right. So let's show some more of this. And then I guess I'm going to get into the final topic to close out the show. So from Truth-Based Media. Man, my wife is having a hard time. Oh, this is from Mercola. Mercola's he's all right. Not the best, not the worst, but he's been around forever. I'll tell you that. Story at a glance. Reports of an increased risk of myocarditis, heart inflammation after the vaccine were recently confirmed in a U.S. study of U.S. military personnel, meaning generally highly fit people. Not everyone in the military is. There's fatties in the military, folks. But generally, much more fit than your general population. Finding the rate of diagnosis was much higher than would be expected in the same population without it, of course. The new report also includes stories of children dying after, including a 13-year-old boy who died days after his second dose, and a 16-year-old who had a heart attack while exercising after his jab. Evidence demonstrates a spike protein used in the vax is dangerous and is responsible for many of the reported vax adverse effects. Now, I don't know about that because I don't know enough of the science behind all of this. What I do know is that spike protein is supposed to code in your system to recognize the virus when you get it, and therefore your antibodies will attack it immediately. There's no guarantee, though. It's all experimental. And it is, if it changes your mRNA, that's a part of your DNA. It's coding and transcription, but it does make a permanent change to you as your body makes these spike proteins. And when does it stop? You know, when does it stop? And I'm just asking questions before, Susan, you yeet me, because I know it's likely. Juan Cholo says, Libertarian radio talk host Neil Bortz suggests the same thing, limiting the voting franchise to real estate property owners since they have a big stake in the system. It's not just property owners. I mean, I'm a property owner, technically. I mean, I'm still paying my mortgage. You never own your property in the United States, by the way, folks. No one owns their property anywhere in the world. We're all freaking slaves. Just understand that. Like, if you're not going to be a slave, then you need to go basically be a vagrant. Homeless people, they're not slaves. I'll put it that way. But yeah, it's not just property owners per se, just people with skin in the game. Because why do you think that Democrats go around to inner cities and they get a bunch of Hollywood folks and whatever else to go, hey man, rock the vote, come vote Democrat. They don't ever say vote Democrat, but that's what they're saying, right? And then you get the dumbest of dumb people who never follow politics, who think, oh, the Democrats are the good guys because they've had this great PR campaign for the last 100 years because they ran the government for the last 100 years. And some of you might say, but Bill, the Republicans, they took the House and the Senate. Yeah. The neocons did. You know what the neocons are? They're Democrats, folks. They're a bunch of Trotskyites. They come from the left, and they're all about war. And they're all about the establishment and the system and propping up their own power. So anyways, I'll get off that. And then he says, I also heard of temporary losing the voting franchise while being on government aid because of the conflict of interest. Yeah, well, I mean, for me, there should be a separation of economy and state as much as there is a separation of church and state. And someone might tell me, oh, Bill, that's completely impractical. Well, I don't think so. Markets do what markets do, folks, and they always exist no matter how draconian the laws are. We call them black markets. If they didn't, we wouldn't have a drug trade. Bottom line. And drugs go and get into jails, folks, the most secure places you could possibly think of. So no matter what, if there's a market for it, if there's a will, there's a way. All right, let's get back to this. Evidence, yeah, okay. Reports from the vaccine averse, the VAERS have been growing each week. It indicates here is NBC News. Evidence growing stronger for vax linked to heart issue, CDC says. Ooh. Inflammation of the heart muscles. Fever, fatigue, shortness of breath, chest pain. It's not the coof. It's the jab. So this is a little out of date. This says 226 cases, myocarditis and pericarditis after vaccination in young people younger than the age of 30 have been confirmed. Now it's 300 some odds. Normally fewer than 100 cases would be expected for this age group. So again, not a huge jump, but it's a jump. It's a concern. It's a risk. And again, we have, these idiots. I'm gonna play this again real quick, saying this kind of stuff.
I just want to stress the message in regard to vaccinations. Clearly, we continue to see in the public arena messages coming out from some people who would describe themselves as anti-vaxxers, and others who have, for various reasons, opposition to vaccination. Can I just stress that anti-vaxxers obviously live in another universe, and others who give messages that this virus isn't dangerous and don't get vaccinated clearly have no medical or scientific training. This virus is an extremely transmissible virus. It can kill you, and it can kill your family and your friends. We've just heard from Dr. Chant that the number of people now going into our hospitals in New South Wales are increasing. The number of people going into our intensive care units are increasing, and the number of people being ventilated are increasing. And sadly, so are the deaths. So my message is very strongly that to the community more broadly, there is only one solution here, and that is to get vaccinated. Dismiss the ideas that aren't based in science or medicine or are propagated by anti-vaxxers who live in another universe. Book yourself in for a vaccination.
Yeah, something like that. Something like this. So, yeah, go get your vax, guys. CDC says vaccine linked to heart inflammation. And in any case, it's just article after article. You can find all of these things. Myocarditis. And who's espousing this? Who in charge is saying, hey, you should talk to your doctor. Maybe you have some risk factors. It's not for everybody, but we encourage you to get it. But, you don't need it. No one's saying that because this isn't what it's about. If you need it, you don't need it. It's not about any of that. This is straight from the CDC. More than 177 million people have received at least one dose of the jab. Okay. Since April 2021, there have been more than 1,000 reports on VAERS of cases of inflammation of heart called myocarditis and pericarditis happening after the vax. These reports are rare given the hundreds of millions of vax doses administered. Yet they estimate, right? One article even said it, that only 10% of vax injuries are reported. Maybe still rare, but that's just who's reporting it. That number could be way bigger. Again, we don't know. CDC and its partners are actively monitoring these reports by reviewing data of medical records to learn more about what happened and to understand any relationship between the COVID vaccination. Most patients who received care responded well to treatment and the rest and quickly felt better. Confirmed cases occurred mostly in male adolescents, ages 16 and older, more often after getting the second dose. Interesting, right? The second dose, meaning maybe your body didn't like it. Should I still get myself or my child vaccinated? Yes, of course you should. Like, just roll that dice, baby. Them odds, I mean, there's only 1,000 cases in 144 million. Them's is good odds, right? Roll that dice, get that vax. Yet if I want to roll the dice with the coof itself, I'm a bigot. I'm evil, right? Absolutely absurd. Absolutely. There is no leadership in America or anywhere around the world. It's just a bunch of megalomaniacs. It's absolutely maddening. All right, guys, let me get to the last thing I really want to talk about here. And I did have more. There is plenty more. Oh, actually, I had two other things I want to talk about. I'm going to talk about vaxes forever. Brought it up at the beginning here. And that is the Pingdemic. And this isn't Matt Christensen's wife, Ping 2, but the Pingdemic. So, from the Sun, lockdown by backdoor. Tony Blair warns 10 million people will be isolating and Pingdemic by August, sparking shutdown. Ex-Prime Minister Blair has warned that 10 million Brits will be isolated by August. A pingdemic is currently sweeping the nation, with pubs, factories, hospitals, and airports being forced to shut down or to shut because of staff isolations. I didn't have my chat up, guys. Sorry. Kizza, I'm sure maybe you are experiencing some of this. You're aware that this is going on. The NHS Test and Trace app has ordered a record 194,000 to stay home in just a week. 46% rise on the previous 7 days. So this track and trace app lets you know if you came into contact with someone who had the coof, and then afterwards you are to quarantine, meaning that everyone eventually will quarantine because this is retarded. This is not how these things work. You don't quarantine when you come into contact with something necessarily. You quarantine when you exhibit symptoms. Now, maybe if you come into contact, for sure, you know you have it, right? I know that's what they've been saying from the beginning, but this isn't procedures I was ever taught to do from the military or when I worked in a jail. I can tell you that. Now, we would quarantine people who potentially had tuberculosis in a negative airflow cell. But that was rare. And that's only because TB is a thing in jails. But you get your little TB test every year, little jab under the skin. If it bumps up and gets hard or whatever, you have TB or you've been exposed, right? Maybe you guys have never done this. If you're in the military, you've done it for sure. But it doesn't really happen. But we do have those things. Even when I was at when I worked at the hospital down the road here, we had a special isolation room with negative airflow and all that for some sort of infectious disease, something just like this, some sort of new pandemic thing, if it was going to come up. Except for this is just like basically a cold that old folks are dying from. Because we never count when they normally would die from a cold, because we usually call it pneumonia or heart failure or whatever it actually is. And we don't say, oh, well, they had a cold. They died of a cold. No one ever says that, right? This means a staggering 2 million Brits are now thought to be stuck at home. It comes as all coronavirus restrictions will be lifted with a big bang tomorrow on Boris Johnson's Freedom Day. Kissa says, Bill, I have 6 weeks of freedom, and the NHS Test and Trace app is garbage, and never downloaded it. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the nice thing, right? You're not forced to do it. But these idiots that are scared, kids, I mean, I'm sure you know somebody or you work with somebody that's all worried about this. I thought it was really funny the other day. I watched the Lotus Eaters, and Sargon was talking about the YouGov polls, and they were all exactly 71%, or like 1 or 2 were 70%, but they're like 71% of Brits want lockdowns to continue. 71% of Brits want face masks. 71%. And it's like, no, probably not. It was interesting too, because I took a test today, a survey today from Carnegie Mellon University, and it was on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I wonder what this is. This is about the coup. I want to see what this is all about. So I looked at it, and it was about this, it was track and trace kind of stuff. It was like, have you been out in the last 24 hours? Blah, 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 blah. Are you worried about the coronavirus? Are you, do you trust your government? I was like, hell no. What kind of idiot trusts their government? Like, that should be a default stance of everybody. Like, do you trust the people that have absolute authority and a monopoly on power and force over you? No. Why would you trust someone who basically, if you don't do what they say, would be like, oh, okay, I'm going to stick a gun to your head or throw you in jail or whatever it is. I don't trust folks like that. I trust people who, I don't have to coerce via force. But one of his predecessors is a warning that a taste of normality for Brits will only fuel Britain's third wave. The third wave. Here we are. As Holly said, 14 months to slow the spread. Here we are, a year and a half later. We're talking about third and fourth wave still. Third and fourth wave still. Why are we talking about this? It's absurd. Blair told the Times, the one thing we've learned about COVID is that any hope we had at the beginning of this, which is that this would be a crisis with a defined beginning, middle, and end, is unfortunately not correct. Yeah, it's endemic, dude. It's like any other cold or flu or whatever. It's just here, and we're going to live. The human race will survive. I promise, the human race will survive everyone dying at life expectancy. I can assure you. That is not a joke. I'm pretty sure when we were streaming, what was it, Wednesday on the Just for the Memes, or it might have been Tuesday when I was on here with Christian and Aiden. I forget. Some of the folks in my chat were talking about the. I think it was Wednesday night on the Just for the Memes. They were talking about how they had Val said something about her grandfather had COPD and he was fine. I think it was Val, and someone else in the chat there was talking about people who were older and did fine. A lot of people have. There are, centenarians that have done fine with this. But I don't think you make it to, be a century old and basically have poor health all your life, right? The latest virus issues come despite the fact that 87.5% of Brits have at least one jab. That's ridiculous compliance. Holy cow. With 2/3 fully vaccinated. What happens when they hit that little switch and everyone's head explodes like in Kingsman or something? That's a joke, YouTube. I don't think that's what's going to happen because people took the jab. The app run by the Department of Health rather than the NHS sends an alert if you spent 15 minutes within 2 meters of someone who later tested positive. That's insane. Plans to exempt double jab Brits from isolation do not kick in until August 16th, and this is unlikely to change. 10 million isolating. Blair has now predicted the number of people being pinged will plunge the economy into even more chaos as numbers soar. You know what will happen is a bunch of Brits who did this will get frustrated with it probably and delete the damn app. That's what will happen. A report due to be published by Tony Blair's Institute of Global Change shows that the number of people being forced to isolate could rise to 10 million by August 16th. The Institute for Global Change. What does Tony Blair care about changing the globe for? He lives in England. What is with all these globalists? in every level of government. It's insane. Currently, parents are pulling kids out of school early to avoid the pingdemic and having to cancel their summer holidays. Oh, you just don't listen. Don't comply. Like, seriously. Youngsters are being kept at home by their worried parents to avoid the risk of being pinged or told to self-isolate ahead of the summer holidays. Meanwhile, the tube line has suspended for 2 other affected after the pingdemic cut staff numbers. So, and there are numerous articles. Here's from The Guardian. Said bins in England go uncollected due to the COVID test and trace pingdemic. You need to self-isolate. Rubbish bins in parts of the UK are going uncollected, and some health workers have been urged to postpone holidays because of staff shortages associated with the surge in cases. Bin collections have been disrupted in Liverpool, Bristol, Norfolk, Sandwell, Coventry, and Lancashire, amid a warning that services are unsustainable due to rising infection and a high ping rate by the NHS Test Trace app. Now, here's the thing. Are you bringing me a baby?
I'm sorry.
I was going to tell you to. I was going to tell you my wife's bringing me the baby because she's been screaming this whole time.
I have to keep bouncing her.
Got a baby again. No screaming with daddy. You won't put up with any of that. But yeah, like, how do we know that this app is even telling people reality? It's the government. Like, again, you're using their app. We don't know if those are fake pings. It's like the message that you all get that hot, sexy singles are in your area, right? Just looking for you. Looking for you. We just don't know, guys. All right, let's see. It says, what is that's where I get anal in the first meeting with a Swedish princess? Okay. Yeah. Hey, you. Oh, man. You say hi? What are you so grumpy for? What did mommy do? Says, I think Apple was trying to do some sort of thing. Says, I think Apple was trying to do some contact tracing without asking user permission. No doubt. No doubt. I'm sure all of these providers will eventually. I mean, I'm seriously, I love having a smartphone, honestly, because I read so much on here and do so much stuff with it. But I'm honestly at the point where I'm like, getting ready to get rid of this thing. I mean, I've had the same one forever anyways. I've had it 4 or 5 years now, I think. What? Yeah? You want to say something? Yeah? You trying to eat your hand? All right, guys. Well, this is why Bill said he couldn't. Couldn't scream forever. All right. What are you screaming about? We're gonna do live on air diaper changes. Not the diaper. Hey. 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 You got gases? Is that why you're so grumpy? Or are you just tired? All right, guys. Hey. Give me 1 second, guys. Here she comes. Mommy.
I have to crowd surfer or
You crowd surfer? Yeah.
what I do.
She likes that. Okay, well, keep it up.
Yeah, well, it's exhausting.
You know I'm live, right? My mic isn't muted, so
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay. Richard Walker, we fought to stay open and pandemic, but Pingdemic has forced us to shut, says Iceland boss. Same thing, guys. Just absolute absurdity. And these people are just complying. I don't, why is this article not coming up? Okay. From the new statement. It's a symptom of the UK's problem, not the cause. The constant threat of being asked to self-isolate is an inevitable consequence of government's approach to the coof. Boris Johnson will spend Freedom Day in isolation after Downing Street first announced, then abandoned plans to follow the Prime Minister and the Chancellor to participate in the test and release trial. The trial would have meant that they avoided their 10 days of self-isolation, which is triggered because they have had to direct contact with the health secretary. The row has helped create a further truncae of headlines in the conservative papers about the so-called Pingdemic, as more and more people are asked to self-isolate. It's going to be one of those websites. I hate when they do stuff. All right, it's as big as I can get it for you guys. Whatever. As more and more people are asked to self-isolate. Now, it is true to say that summer of stop-start self-isolation is potentially disastrous for most businesses, from restaurants to supermarkets to theaters. The England cricket team might be able to put out a second winning side afterward. Okay, whatever. I don't care. I'm going to read all that. Here's another one from Reuters. Pingdemic, English business buckle under COVID isolation demands. So I think you guys get the point there, is that this isn't even tracking and tracing really. What it is just telling people to self-isolate, and it's absolutely ravishing, destroying the businesses in the UK, because no one's standing up and saying, screw you. No one's being Ian Smith from Attila's Gens and saying, screw you. This was also interesting as far as this stuff goes. I showed you New York's death tolls earlier. But this is the Buffalo News. More than 128,000 Western New Yorkers have contracted the coof since March. 2,500 have died of it. Those are like not high numbers, guys. This is really what I wanted to show you, though. What is that? Come on. Come on. Show the data. Why is this coming in weird? All right, let me refresh this. This was the big thing. I wanted you guys to see this chart. Again, visual data is always preferable generally for the masses, because it allows you to show people what's really going on there impactfully, because people tend not to understand just blanket numbers on a piece of paper. But when I look at a chart like this and I go, where are all these deaths per day? Where was the big spike? Oh, from November to early May. I think we call that flu season, don't we? But there were no flu cases, Bill, last year. I know. It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how that works. And from April to November, when there is no flu season, it was really low. And what was the big spike here? They had 1,000 people. Ooh, bad day for them. So here's another one from the Intelligencer. New York COVID death toll is 11,000 fewer than the federal count. What? So we can't even keep our data straight. And of course, we all know about how they say whatever is a COVID death. So again, I'm not going to continue to harp on this. What I am going to do is I'm going to bring up this last thing here I'm going to talk about, and then I'm going to get off. And baby's not crying right now, but probably help out the wife. Appreciate all you being here. I don't know what happened to Aiden. You know, Aiden did an Aidenism, I guess. I'm going to show you a couple different news articles because this is quite interesting. It's quite funny, actually. A pandemic simulation called the Crimson Contagion exposed weaknesses we're seeing now. Amazing. So this was last March that this was released in Men's Health. Now they're fair because it's Men's Health. The outbreak started in January 2019. A 57-year-old man returned home to Chicago from a tour of China. Somewhere along the way, his group, including travelers from Australia, Kuwait, Malaysia, Thailand, Britain, and Spain, had picked up a flu virus. By the time they headed home, they had begun to develop a fever, respiratory symptoms. The Chicagoan had low energy and dry cough. The same day he came home, his 17-year-old son went out spreading the flu to others. By August, 1,400 people in Chicago were infected with 12,000 cases reported nationwide. This is a frighteningly familiar scenario, but it's not real. As the New York Times reported last year, at least a dozen federal agencies, 12 states, and major health organizations such as the American Red Cross, America's Nurse Association, and the Mayo Clinic conducted a pandemic readiness exercise called Crimson Contagion. Using the premise of a flu arriving in Chicago, the teams gamed out the U.S. response in real time. The idea was identifying weakness and improving the official reaction in case of a real pandemic. And it goes on and on about it a little bit here. But you get a sense of that. I'm going to read directly from a wiki on this in a second. What I like here is this HuffPost.
I don't like having thousands of people around when you don't need them.
My first question is, you said that you don't take responsibility, but you did disband the White House pandemic office, and the officials that were working in that office left this administration abruptly. So what responsibility do you take to that in the...
This is a dumb question because federalism, guys, federalism. Trump or any other president, including Biden, has no authority to be dictating these things that they're dictating. But whatever. I know no one believes in that anymore. So according to the HuffPo, Trump screwed this up. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services last year set up a months-long simulated exercise that showed the nation was unprepared for a pandemic. Yeah, because of Obama. We know that, right? According to the critical draft assessment, then the Trump administration took little action to respond to the many of the lessons learned. Okay, well, why was all our PPE and everything depleted after what was the avian bird flu under Obama and not replaced? That's not Trump's fault. Not going to sit here and try and cover for Trump either, per se. I'm just saying, like, HuffPo, though, what do you expect? The exercise codenamed Crimson Contagion had eerie similarities to the current real-life coronavirus pandemic. Imagine that. The exercise involved officials from more than a dozen federal agencies, several states and hospitals responding to the scenario in which the pandemic flu had begun in China, was spread by international tourists, and was deemed a pandemic 47 days after the first outbreak. Man, if we had a 47-day turnaround, that would have been probably a big change. But you know what? We didn't because China lied. China lied. The WHO lied. The government, our government lied. Every government has lied about, they continue to lie about this thing. They continue to tell you it's the most horrible, worst thing ever. I don't know. Chat, real quick. If you know someone that passed from this, just put a 1 in the chat or something. And then let me know how many people that have passed from this that you know. Because a lot of people I've talked to, it's like a friend of a friend of a friend they know died. You know, this obviously is not the and of course we could talk about old people. Maybe your granny died. Sorry to hear that. Hopefully she had a good long life. Because we're all going to die someday, folks. We're all going to die. Yep. Matt, good point. Matt says, ailments are just part of nature and weren't used as an authoritarian cudgel in global psychological warfare. There you go. Holly says 0. Matt says 0. Yep, there you go. Aiden did premiere a video after an hour after my show started. Well, maybe that's what she was busy doing. She did tell me Tuesday that she had editing to do, and I asked her if she had a video coming out. Thing you talking about audio in the video there? Yeah, I wasn't planning on playing that video. I just let it play for a minute. The lady that stood up said, "Mr. Trump, you disassembled your pandemic task force or whatever." I said, yeah, it's federalism. He shouldn't have made one in the first place. I mean, I get it. It seemed like an emergency, but yeah. Anyways, let's keep going here. By then, in the scenario, 110 million Americans were expected to become ill. The simulation that ran from January to August exposed problems that included funding shortfalls, muddled leadership roles, scarce resources, and hodgepodge of responsibilities from cities and states. According to the Dunning assessment obtained by The Times, it also became apparent the U.S. was incapable of quickly manufacturing adequate equipment and medications for such an emergency, according to the draft report. Of course it was, because we outsource everything to China. So does everyone else. We decided we were going to do that in the 1970s, and we did it. We've propped them up, and we thought we were going to make them like good guys because, free markets, capitalism, and that's not what happened. They just got more powerful, and we're like, now that we have money, we're going to be more draconian. That's what happened. We basically propped up China. We did it for 40 years, and now they're going to be the world power. And they likely released a bioweapon on us. A bioweapon that's not very effective, but hey, is what it is. But Trump's administration eliminated a pandemic unit within the Department of Homeland Security in 2018. Okay. And weeks after the first real COOF cases was diagnosed in the U.S., Trump submitted a 2021 budget proposal call for $693.3 million reduction in funding for the Centers of Disease Control. Well, I would agree with that. In fact, I'd say let's get rid of the CDC because the federal government has no business running a CDC. That's not in the Constitution. There's nothing in the Constitution that authorizes an organization like the CDC. And you're not going to sit there and go, but Bill, interstate commerce clause. There's no interstate commerce when it comes to health things. This is a vestige of the progressive era, folks. Much like the FDA, no, my mind's blanking. I was going to say another alphabet agency, but whatever. These things aren't constitutional. They shouldn't be in our governments. And we don't need a centralized healthcare system like this. We need decentralized networks who communicate. That makes for a strong society. This is just basically weakness. Only the people at the top have strength. Everyone else is just weak because of the way that the system is set up. Well, President Trump has claimed that nobody knew there would be a pandemic of this proportion. That's exactly the kind of possibility the exercise addressed. And Obama administration had the benefit of lessons of learning from the the Ebola crisis. Why did we have no PPE then? Why didn't he restock it? Freaking HuffPo. You just generally shouldn't read HuffPo, but I found this article. I thought, well, let's look at it for a minute, right? Obama aides in the early 2017s ran an exercise for pandemic preparedness for incoming officials of the Trump administration as part of the transition. Well, almost all of the previous administration's experts had left the government by last year. Oh, no. Oh, no. The officials that were in the Obama administration left. Therefore, because Obama was God, we can never get it right now unless those people come back. Let's see. Former Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates, who was fired by Trump in 2019, probably justifiably, and Trump should have fired a lot more people too, warned of the danger of the pandemic to an unprepared nation last year and his worldwide threat assessment. The U.S. will remain vulnerable to the next flu pandemic or large-scale outbreak of a contagious disease that could lead to massive rates of death and disability, severely affect the world's economy, strain international resources, and increase calls on the United States for support. You know, and this last part here talks about talking about the economy. It's really interesting because I had a buddy over who I hadn't seen in a while. A friend of mine, mentioned him before, used to work for Google. I guess he works for Quora now. But his mom is having some health issues, so he's in town, and he's going to be here indefinitely. But because of that, I got to see him, and he kind of explained to me, he's been vaxxed. He kind of explained to me that, you know, well, some people, you know, employers might be looking at the cost to benefit ratio of employees being sick and out. I'm thinking, yeah, that's a reasonable thing to look at, to think about. Also, though, that's just standard every year. People get sick, they get the flu, they get this, they get that. So I really don't know how this is any different than any other time. But it's whatever. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, people are going to be out of work because they're ill. We all get ill. Now, I haven't been sick in a long time. I think the last time I was sick was right around the beginning of the COOF pandemic, or maybe not even here in the United States, as far as lockdowns were going. And this is the other stupid thing about the lockdowns, right? Because first cases in Wuhan were in September, October-ish. A city of 11 million people, lots of international trade and travel. You think this wasn't already in the United States, already all around the world by March? Again, that's how you know, I would speculate, right? This is how you know. This is how you can tell that all this is farcical and meant to control you. Just like all the things I talked about earlier. And the jab efficacy, the dangers of it. And again, I don't think it's probably that dangerous for most people. I just don't feel like I should get it, and it's experimental, and there's no liability. So why would I do something that basically, if I get screwed over, if I'm paralyzed for the rest of my life, or have a heart attack and die randomly, I know my chances might be small, but if that happens, that's because I took a direct action, right, of doing that. And I know the potential risk. I also take a direct action, more or less, with the COOF, and knowing that I'm going to live not afraid of this thing. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm going to become a complete dick here eventually if we start trying to go back into these things and the lockdowns and whatever else. And people say things to me. I went to the doctor's office yesterday. There were signs all over the facility because there were numerous places in there. There's radiology and whatever else. It's a big facility, right? I went there, didn't wear a mask. Went in the office, didn't wear a mask. Didn't wear a mask walking through in the waiting room. Didn't wear a mask back in the thing. My wife did, but my wife ain't me. I mean, that was her decision. And if someone asked me, I would say, nope, not going to happen. And if they'd asked me to leave, it'd have been like, okay, I can probably do that. But my wife and daughter are coming with me too. And And if that wasn't necessarily even the case, like if they called security or something like that, I mean, I would probably just generally leave. But just tell those guys, hey, sorry guys, not doing it. And I did see some of the security guys outside. And they weren't wearing masks, but they were outside, so maybe that's why. In any case, guys, so here's a wiki on Crimson Contagion. It was run from January to August. But yeah, you can get more details on that. But one of the things that came out of there's also this. You can actually read the whole document here on the Internet Archive on the Crimson Contagion. A little quick search will pull that up for you. But then based out of all of this, we got an executive order. You probably didn't know about this. Modernizing influenza vaccines in the United States to promote national security and public health, September 19th, 2019. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title III, the United States Code, I hereby order as following. Influenza viruses are constantly changing and are circulating globally in humans and animals. Relatively minor changes in these viruses cause annual seasonal influenza outbreak. Not this year, though. Not this year. Which resulted in millions of illnesses, hundreds of thousands of hospitalizations, and tens of thousands of deaths each year in the United States. Periodically, new influenza virus emerges from animals, including birds and pigs, and can spread efficiently and have sustained transmission among humans. In any case, the whole thing about this, of course, it references the most devastating pandemic occurred in 1918 to 1919. This is a big trope, guys. You know why that pandemic was devastating? Because of the quality of living back then and the lack of health care. We're looking at something 100 years later and trying to compare with all of the medical technological advances we've had in the last 100 years. And we're trying to say, this could happen again. I don't think so. And they made a lot of mistakes, and they barely, I mean, as far as science and medicine and stuff goes, they barely just scratched the surface at that point. I mean, it was decent then, comparatively to prior generations, right? But yeah, this whole idea of the Spanish flu, I don't think it's going to happen again. I just don't. I could be wrong. The most devastating pandemic occurred in 1918 and 1919, and estimated to have killed more than 50 million people worldwide, including 675,000 Americans. Vaccination is the most effective defense, blah, 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 if it works, because that's a whole nother thing they don't tell you is the efficacy of those vaccines is not that high, about 40%. All righty. All right. Let me check over an entropy real quick. I haven't been over there in a while. Can you gaslight any harder? Yeah, right. Sten says, Sam says, I think I'm watching a politician who needs to be ventilated. Well, many of us have ventilators on hand. Quite nearby. I'm looking at a ventilator right now. And there goes the doctor is Chan or Chin. Really great choice to make people trust them. Another a-hole says, back in the day, forefathers used rope. So both Sten and Sam, you don't know anyone that's died. Okay. Although my grandmother died last year, and the nurse told us it was probably COVID that did her. Okay. But she was 96. Exactly, Sam. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. 100%. It's like my cousin that passed away, who was a little bit obese, had heart problems, and he died of pneumonia. And my sister's like, but he did die of COVID. No, he died with COVID. Those are two different things. And I know I've said before, my daughter has had a few years back. She had it was a bit scary, She had pneumonia from just a regular cold. So I'm trying to think. Well, my parent, I was here at home, but then she was still a little bit too young to stay here with me, or not stay here with me, but stay with me or stay here by herself overnight. I mean, while I worked overnight, so my parents would keep her overnight. And I think my mom called me early in the morning. I don't even remember, but I got her or whatever, because my parents would get her to school. This was just the situation I was in for a long time because, divorced and single dad, full custody. But yeah, she had pneumonia. I took her in and she was all right, hung out for a couple days together, took off work. All due to a little cold, though. All due to a little cold. And if I hadn't gotten her the medical attention, she may very well have died. That's what happens. Sam says, and we got the results of her COVID test well after she died. Negative, no coof in her system. Didn't stop the nurse from fear-mongering, though. No doubt. Juan Cholo. The Spanish flu was so bad because it was deadly specifically to the young and otherwise healthy. It wiped out small towns. The coof is nothing compared to the Spanish flu. I agree. But again, like I said, we don't have the modern medical treatment today. Like a big thing that happens, right? One of the reasons why you have to intubate people, right? You have to get a breathing tube down their throat and all that. Trust me, I know. I've had to hold people down while this is happening. Is because they can't get enough oxygen in. There's not enough pressure in their lungs alone, or air pressure, proper air pressure for them to breathe properly. And that's when they found out later on, as well with the coof, that the ventilators were actually killing people. Something that's underreported. We haven't talked about a lot recently, but they were intubating everyone and trying to ventilate them. And that was killing people because the internal pressure inside was worse. And so the lungs weren't expanding properly. There wasn't enough oxygen coming in. So then you have a low pulse ox and all that stuff. You basically get asphyxiated in a very gross, slow way. Hopefully you would hope that most people would pass out before they start having convulsions and other things that happen when you choke somebody out, or I shouldn't say choke them out, but they lose their oxygen. They lose oxygen. No oxygen is getting to the brain. That is, I heard of one older person who died of the coof that was a relative of a friend I know of 3 others that had been hospitalized, but that's it. Right. Exactly. And you guys are a small sample size. It says I have 6 over on Entropy right now. And I don't know, I got 7 watching on YouTube. So not a big sample size at the moment, but still, why don't you guys know anybody? If this is such a big deal, why don't you guys know anybody that have had this and died from it? I have an uncle in his 60s who was hospitalized. He is absolutely okay as far as I know. Heavy smoker, probably smokes 2 to 3 packs a day in his home. They always have my aunt and uncle. So there you go. All right, let's finish up some other chats here. Centralization. What's Matt say? Centralization brings this farce of a situation. Anyone remember in the 2009 Obama was dick waving his internet kill switch? Yeah. They offer free flu vax at most workplaces, but they still don't force you to take it. Yeah, I used to get, I got it once when I worked at the jail and I got sick. So I was like, well, what's the point in this? And then I had to get it when I worked at the hospital. And I did get sick. I don't remember being sick at all at the hospital. I remember being sick once. I threw up while I was at work because I was hungover. It was a hot day. I was a little hungover. Didn't get a lot of sleep. And as I was out doing my patrols and stuff, the other out buildings we were doing, I got out of the car because I threw up and I threw up. And that was it. Dollhuck said Aiden double booked. Yeah, well, we threw it out there. It's not a big deal. I'll just remove it from the description, and I'll probably have her back Tuesday. She was talking with me about maybe doing some recordings for her for some of her videos, so that would be great. And so, hey, maybe I made a new friend. But I really like Aiden. I've always enjoyed her content, and very, very smart lady, at least in her wheelhouse. So I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation with her and Christian. I'll try and do that again, by the way, sometime in the future. But yeah, we all know, like, anyone who watches Aiden with any sort of regularity, whether it's when she's on Yiz or on Adam and Sitch's show or whatever else she's supposed to be there, she's not the best with scheduling, and neither am I. So, All right, Holly's at work, says have a great night. You too, Holly. I'm about to get off here anyways. Also, everyone forgets that there was a war in which people were living in dirt, mud, trenches. Yes. Part of the whole Spanish flu thing. But well, when was the end of it? Wasn't Armistice Day in 1918 or something like that? I gotta look that up now. Yeah. Yeah, November 11th, 1918. That's right. And I still do that and call it Veterans Day. It's Armistice Day. It's supposed to be a day where we celebrate that there would be no wars ever in the world, nothing so tragic and horrible. And of course that's not true. It hasn't happened, but switching that around to Veterans Day is a sad thing, in my opinion. And of course, I had the Marine Corps birthday right there too. So, but yeah, guys, that's it for the show today. Like I said, it's just a bunch of stuff I wanted to cover. I was hoping, again, Aiden would show up, but it's okay if she did double book. If she's premiering something, it happens. Yeah, Juan Cholo said Armistice Day was November 11th, right? Let's see. Sten, what do you think you do for Dawn? Yeah, I know. Sten, I would love for you to book for me, man. You want another job? I can't. Tanks told me he's tried to book for the incest for the memes like a couple times, and he can't do it. I don't know how I get people on, but often I get no responses back. I don't have the time to sit around and just email people to death or pester them to death. But I mean, I still want to get Carl on at some point, and I have messaged the Secretary of ACOD, and hasn't worked out. Maybe I'm not cool enough yet. I don't know. Spanish flu appeared earlier, but all sides hid it so the enemy wouldn't know how bad it was affecting the troops. Spain was neutral and reported it, and it was called the Spanish flu. Right. But current theories suggest it came from China. All right, guys. Well, that's it for me for the day. I have other things to do. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe if I'm up, if I'm rested, maybe if Sniper sends me a link, I'll be over there tonight. Who knows? If I do, I'll probably end up popping in late, like always, because it's Friday night, guys. I'm not paying attention to the time. I'm chilling out. I'm having fun. In any case, thank you all for joining. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. Keeps me going, as I always say. If I'm streaming, I've only been doing the streaming thing for a month or two, but even so, just people showing up, watching the videos, it's great, right? It takes forever to build these things, especially in the political censorship type environment that we're in. And mind you, this video is likely to be yeeted. I don't know. I don't think I said anything that Susan doesn't like. I mean, I used the CDC sources, so what are we going to do? And you got to meet my daughter if you hadn't before. I've brought her on stream a few times, but the lovely little thing that she is. I think she finally fell asleep because that's probably what she needed to do, was just take a nap. But in any case, guys, once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you all for being here. This is All Minus One. My name is Bill. I will be back Tuesday at 3 p.m. and next Friday at 3 p.m. You can also catch me over on the Unjustified Memes if you guys aren't aware. Most of you are. That's every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. And with all that, folks, I wish you all well.